for the second game in a row, it's another touchdown Kraken! Only this time the kicker missed the extra point. Actually, they did kick one in between the pipes, but that doesn't count in hockey. So just 6 points for the Kraken tonight as they win this one 6-4 to start off the homestand against the Philadelphia Flyers. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where I had already told you the final score. The Kraken win this one 6-4. Like I said, the second game in a row now that they've scored at least 6 goals in a game, and also second win in a row. And this one really had a little bit of everything that you could want from a hockey game, especially as a home fan. The home team won. They scored 6 goals. They had 2 goals in 8 seconds at one point. They had to fight back from a couple of deficits. They also allowed the opposing team to make it interesting. There was a fight. There was a whole lot of extracurriculars right before that fight. Yeah, outside of a goalie goal, I guess. We're still waiting for that, but this was another fun one, and if these last 2 games are any indication of what the season could hold for the Kraken and Kraken fans, it's going to be a really fun season to watch and exciting. Maybe at times a bit emotionally exhausting, but it's going to be a season very well worth watching. So with that, and since there was another 10 goals in this game, just like the previous one, even if the score is a little different, this time there was no empty netter that contributed to that. Let's get right into the game where the Kraken continue to alternate goalies. So Grubauer's in net, and everyone was healthy to start the game. We'll get to that, but things don't get off to the best start for the Kraken. It's a bit of a back and forth start, but it's Philadelphia who ends up opening up the scoring. The Kraken just not really able to control things much early on like we saw them do, certainly throughout the last period and a half of the previous game to end the road trip in Nashville. And this first goal, it's one that I think Grubauer probably overcommits a little bit to the first save. It's a shot on goal that might have snuck in the side. Either way, Grubauer gets a blocker to it to deflect it just wide of the net. It goes off the end boards behind the net, which normally would be fine, but the only player behind the net was Scott Lawton of the Flyers. He picks up the puck and wraps it around the far side just before Grubauer can lunge back with his foot to the post. So the Flyers, just about 5 minutes into the game, take the lead. Now, real quick, I'm going to say with this one that, at least in the moment watching it live, it looks like it might have been offside. It looked like the puck might have crossed the line before the last Flyer got back across the line before they re-entered the zone as they enter to set up this whole play in the first place. It looks like the Kraken looked at it on the bench and they decided not to challenge it, so I assume there was probably a good replay that, I was at the game, so I didn't see what the broadcast might have shown. So you have to let me know down in the comment section. But yeah, the Kraken don't end up challenging, so the goal does stand up. But live action, it looked like it might have been offside. Either way, the more troubling thing is that so far to this point, every Kraken game this season, all 4 of them, had started with the same team scoring the first 2 goals. So to keep that trend going, it felt like the Flyers might find the net a second time, and they very nearly did another 5 or so minutes later, and it's almost the exact same play, only this time the puck goes wide of the net. Grubauer doesn't quite have to lunge out to push it, make sure that it's going wide of the net, but almost the exact same way, the puck is picked up behind the net by another Flyer player, tries to wrap it around that same side of the post, but this time, Grubauer, I think, probably having learned at least a little bit from the previous experience just a few minutes prior, lunges back, this time in time to get his foot to the post to shut that down, so the Flyers are not able to create deja vu and get the second goal through the same circumstance of wrapping the puck around that far side. And I do think that extra context makes this save even a little bit better from Grubauer, but even without it, it was a pretty nice save by Grubauer to get back to that far post to stop that wraparound chance. Unfortunately, as we close in towards the end of the period, this would be the first game this season where we see a 1-1 score as the Kraken get on the board into the offensive end. It's a Brandon Montour bomb from up top that makes it through everybody and through the 5-hole of the 6'7" massive goaltender in net for at least most of the game for the Flyers. And it looked for a second like Schwartz might have gotten a piece of this, but it gets through the traffic, even though in the end Schwartz does not end up getting a piece of this, so it does turn out to be Montour's first goal as a Kraken. I think it's probably somewhat safe to say that at least some traffic in between the shot and the goaltender made it a little bit harder for him to read the shot, and maybe gave that little bit of extra time that was needed for that puck to sneak between his legs and into the net to give the Kraken their first goal of the game and tie things up with just over a minute left in the period and a good chance to enter the intermission with the score tied and momentum on your side. Unfortunately, however, that was not meant to be, as less than a minute later, 43 seconds to be exact, the Flyers and Scott Laughton again get into the Kraken zone. Once again, it's Laughton getting behind every Kraken skater on the ice, and credit where it's due. Originally, I thought that this was just a soft one that Grubauer led up, and maybe there's room where he could have played this a little bit better. He probably could have been more outside of the net to take away the angle for Laughton to shoot, since he really didn't have any passing lanes to pass the puck across into. Instead, Grubauer sticks to his post, maybe not knowing that there wasn't a pass or another player coming on the far side that we would have to respond to. Either way, really this one is just a perfectly placed shot by Laughton as he puts it right into the top near side corner, just past the ear of Grubauer and over his shoulder. If Grubauer had been, say, 6'7" like the goaltender on the other end, there probably isn't that little window, but it is there. Laughton hits it, and it's 2-1 Flyers, a lead that they would take into the intermission. The good news, however, for the Kraken is that after a up and down kind of middling first period where they were able to fight back and tie things after the early goal, but then immediately give up an answering goal, and even to say it was middling, while momentum and chances were somewhat even between the teams, where those chances were coming from was definitely not. The Kraken were having trouble in that first period getting in front of the net, and sure, getting right in front of the net might have less value when the opposing goaltender can just see over anybody that's in front of the net, especially, say, a Yanni Gourde or Brandon Tanev. But there's still value in having players in net front, which is something the Flyers were doing pretty well in that first period, or at the very least they were able to create chances up close, where the Kraken chances were coming mostly from the outside. Even the goal they scored in Montour's goal came from well above the face-off circle. Really, the best chances the Kraken had in that first period were on a power play, which it was a pretty good power play for the Kraken, even if they didn't score, and was the first of 3 power plays, the other 2 for the Flyers, right back to back to back in the middle part of that first period. None of them ended up going anywhere. But as we start out the second period, the next power play, which is one for the Kraken just a few minutes into the second, does end up going somewhere. It kind of starts out as another one of these power plays where the Kraken do get set up pretty early on into it in the offensive end. They're just cycling the puck around the outside, looking for shooting lanes that don't really seem to be there, right up until Jared McCann, who has the puck at that point in time, circles actually outside of the blue line and then gets the pass as he crosses the blue line, just kind of drifts towards the net, then winds up and fires an absolute bullet at the net and snipes it through the 5-hole once again into the back of the net so fast that, sure, he's a bigger guy, so there's more space there for the puck to go into, but McCann shot this thing so hard that, just in the replay when I'm going back to take the screenshots to put into here, the puck is in the back of the net in, I think, a single frame. So yeah, it would have gotten through just about anybody if it was placed right, and it was placed right. So McCann picks up his 3rd of the season with the power play goal and ties things up for the Kraken. And even better yet, the Kraken are able to really seize momentum with this power play goal and carry that momentum through into the middle part of the period, really taking control of the flow of play, not giving the Flyers much of anything back the other way, and creating some pretty decent chances of their own right up until a power play midway through the second period that is, of the 5 power plays the Kraken end up getting in this game, I would say pretty easily the worst one. It really never goes much of anywhere. It might have been the one that they might have gotten set up kind of in the middle of the power play, but they really aren't able to create anything as far as dangerous looks or even looks at all. The Flyers kill that one off pretty well. As we get into the back half of the period, though, back at 5-on-5, the Kraken were not to be denied, and it really is, in a lot of ways, just 3 minutes or so of the first line putting on a show with some important guest appearances from other players. It starts out with the first line getting into the offensive end, getting things going for the Kraken, and while they aren't the ones that really produced the goal necessarily directly themselves in this particular instance, they are the ones that hem the Flyers into their end of the ice. Importantly, in the second period, with the long change, the benches being farther away from the defending zones in that second period. Okay, well, I say that at least with this first goal, the first line was not necessarily all together as a line. There was a couple of points in this game, especially with the number of power plays and right around those power plays, especially coming out of them, where the lines got thrown into a bit of a blunder. So this one is parts of that first line that end up working together to make the whole thing happen. As McCann is out with Beniers and Tanev, they get things hemmed into the Flyers' end of the ice, keep the Flyers in there, so then when the next three come out in Wright, Burakovsky, and Tolvanen, the Flyers have some tired legs out on the ice, and eventually they're able to take advantage of that. Wright circling with the puck behind the Flyers' net up along the boards, recognizing that because of how long the Flyers have been stuck in their end, they have some pretty tired legs, and as a result, it's not the time to try to force a shot that might have a better chance of just allowing a frozen puck play to stop and the Flyers to get that change. Instead, try to look for a bit of a better opportunity, or certainly wait till you have some more net front presence. So Wright protects the puck up along the boards, drops it to Burakovsky as he circles, and Burakovsky then takes a couple of looks, waits for a second, then recognizes that Tolvanen has gotten up close to the net on the far side. He doesn't really have a passing lane to Tolvanen, though, so he just fires the shot on net. It maybe could have been a little bit better of a shot. It pretty much hits Pedotov right in the chest, which would usually give him a good chance to get that save, freeze the puck, get the change and all that. Instead, though, it bounces off of his chest. He isn't able to handle it cleanly, dribbles out to the far side, where Tolvanen is able to handle it once, maybe twice, gets it to his forehand, and lifts it over the pad of Fedotov into the back of the net to give the Kraken the 3-2 lead, and Golvanen finishes this one. So, not necessarily all the first line, but McCann helps start it with getting things into the offensive end, and then Wright helps start the actual scoring play with the secondary assist. Obviously, Burakovsky picking up the primary, Tolvanen his second of the season. So maybe that first one wasn't all of the first line. There were some parts of the first line that helped lead to it. It's kind of a mess, just like the lines were at the time. But a couple minutes later, this time it is the first line show with a special cameo appearance from Yanni Gourde here to start it all off, as the Kraken get a rush chance down towards the Flyers' end of the ice off of a beautiful transition play started by Riker Evans at the Kraken blue line. He gets it up to Gourde, who quickly recognizes that Jared McCann on the far side of the blue line is completely in wide open ice. Gourde gets it quickly across to McCann as they enter the offensive end, and then McCann has all of the time and space that he could want to skate up and fire off a shot, which, I mean, if you had to pick a Kraken player that you would not want having that kind of opportunity if you're an opposing team, it probably would be Jared McCann. Instead, to the dismay, at least at the exact moment of the coaching staff, at least as far as Bylsma said after the fact, McCann decides not to shoot the puck with all that wide open space. And that's because Jordan Eberle has gotten his way behind the lone defenseman that was still in this play and found his way to the back door. McCann finds his outstretched stick, bounces it off the stick of Eberle and into the net to give the Kraken the 4-2 lead. McCann opted not to shoot, but it ends up being the right play in this particular instance because of Eberle's ability to get behind the defense. Eberle picks up his fourth of the season, retaking the lone lead in goals from McCann after he had tied things up with his power play goal earlier. And the Kraken have a multi-goal lead after having been down twice, both in the first period being down 1-0 and then 2-1. Now, with all that being said, and while it's great that the Kraken scored again and they now have a multi-goal lead, 4-2, it feels like there might have been one glaring, I don't know if problem's the right word with how this goal was scored, but it seems like there might at least be one Kraken player on the bench that felt like there was a problem with how this goal was scored. And even though he had gotten an assist on the previous goal just a couple minutes ago, it seems as though Shane Wright might have felt left out when his two normal wingers and Gord have a beautiful passing play to drive down the ice and score on the Flyers. So he decides to take matters into his own hands, and although he loses the ensuing face-off at center ice, the Kraken quickly end up with the puck. McCann has it, he gets it to Eberle, and this time Eberle is not right next to the net, so he has to pass it up one more time to Shane Wright, who picks it up in open ice, fires off a shot at the net, and buries it to give the Kraken the 5-2 lead just 8 seconds after the puck had dropped at center ice. Okay, look, obviously I'm kidding about the whole Wright being jealous of Gord being a part of his line for the previous great passing drive towards the net to score. And even if that was the case, and even if jealousy is an ugly trait, whatever ends up working, the Kraken scored 2 goals in the quickest succession that they've ever scored 2 goals in the franchise's history. It's the second fastest off a face-off at center ice that the Kraken have scored, with the only other time the Kraken have scored faster than that from center ice. I think a lot of longtime Kraken fans will remember being way back in the inaugural season when Matty Beniers scored 7 seconds into overtime against the Capitals. So yeah, that one was obviously a lot more exciting. It was a game winner, but 2 goals in 8 seconds is pretty fun. Your ears have basically, they're still ringing from the goal horn of the previous goal, and then this one happens, so then you get to hear the announcer announce 2 different goals and who had the goal, who had the assists for the next minute or so as they try to catch up with what the Kraken have been doing out on the ice. So it turns out to be a very eventful, or just generally great period for the Kraken, as they put up 4 goals to go from down 2-1 coming in to up 5-2 by the time the period ends. It ends with a giant hit by, I want to say, Tanev on Konechny. Fortunately, he would be okay. Okay enough to come back and get into a fight later on in the game. We'll get to that, but the Kraken, a dominating second period. Maybe their best of the season. I know we literally just said that about the third period of the previous game, but the Kraken have put together, 4 of the last 5 periods at this point that they had played have been very good, with the exception of the first period in this game that was kind of just okay. And then the third period of this game continues to stick with the theme of eventful, at the very least. It's just riddled with power plays for at least the first half of it. The Kraken get the first chance on the power play as they kind of get early momentum. The power play, it gets its chances. It's certainly better than the power play they had midway through the second. Then the Kraken, a few minutes after that, comes to an end without scoring. Get another power play. Once again, they're unable to score, although they did get their chances. A lot of offensive zone time. Some good things, just nothing that ends up in the net, maybe partially because the Flyers had made a change in net. So at least that might have helped them a little bit. A tough night for Fedotov at the very least. But then as we get more towards the middle of the period, the Flyers are going to start getting some chances. First one for the Flyers really doesn't go much of anywhere. The Kraken do a pretty good job of killing that one off. They might have gotten one shot attempt, and the Kraken didn't get any, but they also spent some time at least with the puck, or keeping the puck in the Flyers' end of the ice during this power play. So a very good kill for the Kraken. Back at 5-on-5 though, things do not go quite as well. It's not long after the power play comes to an end for the Flyers. They are back in the offensive end for the Kraken, and a defensive breakdown that sees too many Kraken players caught up high in the defensive end allows Cam York to get a wide open shot from the slot that, just as he's getting the shot, Borgen kind of gets there to try to challenge it, but it's nowhere near enough. York beats Grubauer. High blocker side, I want to say. Either way, into the back of the net, or actually I think it might have been glove side. Doesn't matter. It finds the back of the net either way to give the Flyers their third goal of the game, and they're within 2. So if they say get another power play, get score on that, then they're back within 1, and suddenly a game that felt like the Kraken were going to run away with it is going to get interesting. Unfortunately, this is where things start to go more into the extracurriculars end of things. As the Kraken, on another rush into the offensive end a couple minutes later, get a chance towards the net, but Gord has his stick caught up and isn't able to receive the pass that, actually I think it was a rebound. Either way, he isn't able to get his stick on the rebound, so instead he just kicks the puck into the net. which got everyone excited. The horn goes off for a hot second. The official correctly waves it off as a no goal absolutely immediately. And I mean, while I'd love to see the Kraken score in any way possible, and although the kicking the puck in rule is about as vague as a rule could possibly be, there's absolutely no arguing. This is pretty much as textbook as you could get of a kicked in puck. The more notable part of this, however, is the response to that, as for whatever reason, the Flyers took large exception to Gord kicking this puck in. At least that's what I assume started all of it. But it leads to a lot of fisticuffs behind the Flyers' net. Gord is obviously the first one that's kind of attacked by the Flyers. Then Montour comes in to defend him. Then Montour is the one that is really mixing it up. Some big punches being thrown. There's at one point one of the Flyers players just whacking away at Montour's arm with, his arm, not his stick. That would have gotten him in a lot of trouble. And eventually, with the refs trying desperately to break everything up, unfortunately, there's a lot more players mad at each other than there are refs or even linesmen to break it up. So it takes a while, which I say unfortunately. The crowd seemed to enjoy it, let's just say. Eventually, Gord and Konechny come out of all of it. They officially drop gloves and have at each other. They never even end up going to the ice. So as far as hockey fights are concerned, I think hockeyfights.com is still doing things, and maybe they still decide or have votes on who they think won a fight. So I don't know how that would have played out personally, and it's probably a little bit Homer biased, but I thought Gord got the slight edge. Honestly, it's kind of a tie between the two if you care about that kind of thing. Either way, both of them head to the box. Unfortunately, the Kraken also end up with an extra penalty out of this, though, as Montour gets a double minor for roughing, while another one of the Flyers players gets a single minor. So the Flyers go to a power play, and especially after they had just pulled to within 2, I feel like a lot of people at least kind of had that dreaded feeling of the Flyers were very likely to score on this power play to pull it back to within 1. And sure enough, it did not take very long whatsoever into the power play to make those bad feelings turn into reality, as right off the face-off, they win the face-off. Gets back to the defenseman. He just kind of walks the blue line, then fires a shot on net. It gets through everybody and into the top far corner to give the Flyers their 4th goal of the game, making it 5-4. And so, wouldn't you know, just like that, well, yep, it got interesting. It is now a 1-goal game, and the Flyers are continuing to press. There's no way the Kraken are actually going to blow a 3-goal third period lead, right? Right? Well, fortunately, they do not do that, at least on this occasion anyway, so knock on wood that doesn't happen, at least for a long, long time. It's bound to happen at some point down the road, hopefully long down the road in many, many years, but it doesn't happen in this game, as even with the Flyers pressing, eventually they make a bit of a mistake, pinch too far down the boards, allows a breakaway for Bjorkstrand. He skates in and just barely gets the shot off in time before he's caught up to as he makes the move right in front of the net, but he gets it off in time and buries it backhand, forehand, and into the net to give Bjorkstrand his first of the season. And the Kraken take back a multi-goal lead. It's 6-4. And although the Flyers would end up going empty net at just under 4 minutes, so another pretty aggressive goalie pull here from the Flyers, the Kraken don't end up hitting the empty net, really never even get all that close. Larson kind of threw it down there, but it took a weird bounce and went sideways, never even really got close. Heck, even if it had been online, he got enough air under that it wasn't going to get into the net by the time the Flyers got back to scoop it out of the front of it. Point is, the Kraken salt the rest of it away. The Flyers don't really even get another good scoring chance even at 6-on-5. The Kraken doing a pretty good job of just mucking up the neutral zone and not allowing the Flyers to even get into the offensive end, much less set up there. So the Kraken, even after giving us a bit of a scare there, they're able to at least ease that a little bit with the Bjorkstrand goal and then not make things too interesting by giving up another one. So We get another exciting, eventful, a bit emotionally exhausting at points there in the third, but a fun game absolutely nonetheless, no matter what else happens with this team based on the last couple of games, and even that one also in Minnesota. So three, I suppose you could even say the same about the first game against the Blues, though there other things are a little bit sloppy. But certainly 3 of the last 4 games have been fun, exciting games. They had their moments where it didn't look like it was going to go the Kraken way, and that happened in a variety of different ways. But in the end, the Kraken are now 3-2 and are playing fun hockey to watch, regardless of whether or not that's always going their way. It's certainly entertaining. And as far as whether or not to be optimistic about the entertainment being good entertainment rather than bad entertainment, well, for the second time in as many games, the Kraken have 6 in this game, but 7 in the previous, different goal scorers. So the Kraken scoring a lot and doing it by committee. Lots of different players. Again, like I pointed out in the previous, even the previous couple games, the Kraken have 4 very good, dangerous lines, or at least, lines that you have to respect. They don't have a true 4th line. Both of those things being pretty notable aspects that we talked quite a bit about that team from the year that they went to the playoffs. That was a year where they had 6 or 7 games that season of 5 different goal scorers, and they're already at 2 so far in just these last 2 games, but so far this season of games with multiple different goal scorers, scoring by committee, no one line that you can just shut down and that'll do it for them, or even 2 lines. You just put out some good defensive pairings to lock down 2 lines, and they're going to have a hard time scoring. They are scoring all up and down the lineup, and that even includes there to get things started with that spree of scoring in the end of the second, where the lines weren't even the lines. It was just kind of 3 forwards thrown out there on the ice, and it still seemed to work for them. So whatever's going on, they seem to be figuring out this system more and more. It certainly is fast, exciting hockey to watch, even if it does lead to some big scores, which means a lot of work for me for talking about goals and getting screenshots ready and all that. It's fun to watch. Besides being fun to watch, though, the one thing that it does make more difficult is deciding who the 3 stars at the end of the game are going to be. Once again, this is another one where there are all sorts of different options you could go with, and even Patreon agreed with that. Didn't really necessarily help me narrow it down too much as far as who the stars were going to be in this particular game, but fair enough. I'm going to have a hard time choosing myself, so you're going to have to help me out in the comment section as well. Of course, these 3 stars brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon. If you want to help decide them before I start recording here, then you can help do that by going to the link down below and supporting more than you already are by just watching or commenting below. At this point, I am going to have to go pretty, I think, inarguably at the first star being Jared McCann. He has a goal and 2 assists on the night. A fantastic night for McCann. I don't know, I just feel like I keep saying the same things about him. Obviously the best forward on the team at the moment and a driving force of this offense. That incredible shot on the power. And it's a power play that early on in the season they're learning new systems there as well. So let's just say it's still getting its sea legs under it, but McCann still very much has that A+ shot that at the very least you can put the puck in McCann's hands or on his stick and you're probably going to have some success as long as he has some space. And it seems like that's the plan right now, is just to get the puck to McCann and let him do his thing. Not a bad strategy. So it's good to see him get that goal. Second star, trying to speed things up here a little bit because my battery's about to die. But second star, I'm going to go Jordan Eberle. Gets the goal and an assist of his own. I think just the 1 assist, but we'll go Eberle with that one. And then third star, Brandon Montour for getting his first goal as a Kraken. And even if he did take that double minor that ended up bringing the Flyers back to within 9 seconds or so into the power play, you know what? I like to see him going in there defending Gord. Just a few days, he's been here for a couple months, but not long into the season and he's already getting into the fray and mixing things up. It's not his fault that the refs decided to flip the coin and he's the one that got the double minor. I'm sure they, having been actually in that scrum and seeing what was going on, probably had a good reason, we can only assume, but Nah, we'll just say that they flipped a coin. Montour got the bad end of it. Either way, Montour gets his first goal as a Kraken, so I'll give the third star to him. There's plenty of other guys that deserve it. Shane Wright got one of the actual stars in the game, and kind of like Decord had a bit of a fumble with the fish toss, but that's okay. He figured it out. I mean, who else? Gord had the great pass to set up that first goal of the two that happened in 8 seconds. Riker Evans actually probably should have gotten the third star now that I think about it. Riker Evans had a fantastic night. Played really well, especially with the one potential downside in this game is that Vince Dunn took a bit of a fall in the late part of the first period, I want to say, or took a big hit and did not play in the third. He was on the bench, I think, for the entire third period, but did not end up playing. So afterwards, Bielsma said it was just precautionary, that he's bumped up, still not fully recovered from the big hit that took him out of the game against Dallas, the one from late in Minnesota. So he's still fighting through some of that, probably re-aggravated a little bit of it. And then when the Kraken go into the third, already up 3 goals, they figure let's let Dunn get a little bit more of a rest, have him on the bench just in case things get hairy. We can put him out there. But even when things did get hairy, they didn't put him out there, so I suppose they still had a lead. Either way, sounds like it's kind of a play it by ear. We'll see how things go in the next couple of days to whether or not he plays on Saturday. But the fact that he was at least on the bench and technically available for that third period is, I'd say, a better sign than if he had not come out of the locker room, which is what usually you would have seen. So we'll just stay optimistic and hope that he plays on Saturday, and just generally that he can get back to being healthy and stay healthy this season, because losing Dunn for a large chunk of the season would definitely not be great, as we saw last season. So anyway, let me know what you think in the comment section down below, who your 3 stars would be, what you thought of this game, how you're feeling about watching more of what we've seen these last 2 games, regardless of the fact that the Kraken won both of these, but high scoring, exciting, eventful games over the course of the season. I think we'll be seeing, I'm sure probably not every game, we're not going to be seeing 6-7 goals a game or 10 goals between 2 teams every game, but I think it might be a lot more common than we've gotten used to over the first 3 years of the team's existence, with this new faster pace, more north and south type of game that the new coaching staff likes to play. Anyway, let me think of that. And before the battery dies, thank you very much for getting to this point. If you liked to enjoy the video, the buttons, that kind of stuff down below helps support the channel, so I appreciate using them. And until next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken.